Okay, well, it's 2 o'clock, 2:02, matter of fact, so we'll call this special meeting of the Commissioners Court to order. Here, a workshop today on April the 20th, 2026 at 2 o'clock here at the courthouse, and we'll all rise for the pledge and prayer.
Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, as I come to you, thank you, Lord, for all you do for us. Lord, I just ask you just to be with us now as we go into this meeting. Just give us the wisdom that we need to make the right decision for Titus County, and we just thank you for all you do for us. Ask you just to be with us now and forgive us where we fail you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number one, we're here for a workshop to discuss all options related to the exterior and interior of the Annex building across the street. Our bid did just go for the exterior of the building, but it also wants to talk about the interior as well. And so that's what we're here today for. And Jeff, you said someone wants to speak.
Yes, Glenn Calvert is here from Preppers. He did research on this building, what, a couple, 2 or 3 years ago on this. And I was going to see if you want to speak on this.
Did you say 2 or 3 years ago?
I think it's 10 or 15.
2019.
I've been
2019.
It's more than that. 2018, 2019?
2019. It's been 7 years.
Yeah.
I guess most of you have seen this report. I kind of dusted it off over the weekend and just highlighted some high points to go over. The one thing that I saw whenever we looked at it is primarily it was about the exterior of the building, but Judge Lee at the time asked us to look at everything, so we did. And the thing that I saw, and if you read through the report, the building is not in compliance with lots of things. On the, I would say, and not to diminish the importance of ADA, but ADA is a significant issue there. Everything from getting into the building from the south parking lot, from the north parking lot, to accessible parking, to accessibility throughout the building, through, as I recall, access to the jury box. Those are all, we'll all agree, very important, and the building was not designed for any of that back in the day. The thing that I noticed is that the building had been modified, renovated by whatever HVAC company came in there last. You know, we have ductwork going to the end of halls, very confusing, if you want to call it that, but really no temperature control whatsoever. It's just a hodgepodge of fixes in that building. But the thing, and that's all obviously important, but the thing that I felt like was the most important was life safety. That is what the type of construction is, a type 3 construction. Type 3 construction is flammable, that's wood. The party walls, if you want to call them that, are load-bearing masonry, and they do have fire rating through the wall. But everything else is wood studs, wood roof trusses, and that's all fine and good as long as you have fire protection. But there's no fire protection, fire suppression, sprinkler system, in other words. As far as what we could tell, there was no working fire alarm system in the building. And the way those buildings were built back then, even though there is a 2-hour wall at least, it may be even a 4-hour wall, you know, separation for the masonry. But typically whenever a block like that catches on fire, the whole block goes away. I know the county has already hired us and other people to do other projects, you know, for the probation area and all that kind of stuff, and those, as far as I know, are working well. But the annex, if you can get past the ADA, which that's a big if, there would have to be walls moved and things like that, but there is a significant amount of fire protection and life safety. The other thing about life safety is you've got to have accessible routes. There's minimum travel distance and minimum doors that you can go to or go through. if there was a fire event from getting from point A to the outside of the building, you've got to have a path, a designated path, and those are all code requirements. So I guess the point I was trying to make way back when was that, in my mind, the county has got lots of exposure, not just life safety, but for the entire block burning, in my opinion. And that's not even getting to the outside. Obviously, you all have seen places where that glued-on aggregate, if you want to call it that, on the wood panels is exposed, and that's deteriorating, things like that. So there was, as I know, because we turned in an RFQ for this, exterior improvements for the outside of the building, and that can be done, but really that part of the building would have to be taken back to, in this case, the studs, and started over, because at this point, you know, even 7 years ago, the plywood was exposed, taking on water, all those kind of things. So that building's a mess, and I know that's not a surprise to any of you, so. Oh, it is, as I said, a wood truss roof. There was a picture in the report. The thing does hold water. I'm not sure how the thing is supposed to drain other than just long-term evaporation, but there are some other issues related to roof drain. So I would say from the front sidewalk to the back sidewalk, that building really needs to be looked at. Jeff, whenever you called me and talking about the potential repair of the exterior, that's, in my mind, kind of like throwing good money after bad related to the overall building. I think it needs to be fixed from the inside out. You know, that could be done. If you were going to try to save the building, I would probably look at probably gutting the majority of that building and starting over with a shoebox, so to speak, and putting in new walls where you need them, make everything accessible. One of the things that I recall, now that I'm thinking about it, when the deputies were there during court, there was always a concern about security, you know, so where people are coming into the building and how they're routed through the building and all that kind of stuff. They were concerned about that as well. So in a nutshell, that's what we came up with.
So, you know, it just needs to be redone, or just tore down and start over?
You know, we've done both, and I can tell you that when you do the modification, renovation, you're always going to find things that you didn't expect. I know there is at least a few places, I think it's in the glue where the bank used to have the drive-through, where there's some asbestos that we found that was hot. But whenever I start thinking about the roof, you know, how are we going to drain it? How are we going to, if as a structural engineer, one thing I would do is make sure the roof is acceptable to carry everything from snow load to rain load to live load. If we were to put new HVAC in that building, which is probably, I would recommend, a lot of that stuff may go on the roof. So as you get into a building renovation scenario, man, it's hard to control the costs on that. Everyone hates to tear down a building. You know, we try to save all that we can, but sometimes that may be the best scenario.
I think the problem with tearing it down is we still don't have enough room there without getting that other building behind it purchased as well. There's just not enough room to put what we need there. And regardless whether we fix the front of it or not, the inside, there's just not enough room there. So
Yeah.
you can take all the walls out and do whatever you wanted to with that. It's still not going to be big enough for our courtroom to handle that. But when you get into talking of that type of tear down, and Justin will know more about the tear down of that, and they've done some of that in Sulphur Springs as well. Justin and them have worked on their roof. We also have spent close to $100,000 on electricity over there,
Okay.
rewiring some electricity,
Okay.
new air conditioners, and Justin and them have also worked on the roof over there. And I don't think that we've had any, I haven't had any complaints. You had any complaints on leakage? So yes, it does need lots of things done to it, and the whole block would be very nice to be.
Yeah,
gone.
The whole courtroom part of it, especially if it doesn't fit your needs or your size, that might be something to consider. If there's already been HVAC work done, if there's already been electrical and roofing done, you know, there might be a situation where the county guts it, repurposes it, and does something else with it, but maybe not a courtroom.
Yeah, 100. I just don't think it's big enough. And then when they have court, we've got court, there's just no parking as well. So you run into quite a few different things there.
Yeah.
But yes, but like I said, some of those things have been looked at as far as the heating and cooling and stuff of that nature.
Okay. How about fire alarm and fire suppression?
The fire alarm has been back. The company out of Paris come did that.
That's what all that electrical work was. That
Part of
was
that.
the cursor, the precursor.
Okay,
Of the
yeah.
electrical work was to, if
Good.
I'm not mistaken, was to address the issue of the fire alarm.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions about any of that?
I don't think I do, Glenn. I've run across my deal the other day and was looking through here at some of the other stuff that we, had looked at, and it brought up some concerns to me about, I know this is a safety issue on the outside out here, but we've got some major safety issues inside from what I have seen.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the fire alarm's been taken. At least somebody will know before, whenever that happens. But it is still what we would call a type 3 construction. Type 3 construction is flammable. And it's good, it's fine to do. There is a square footage limitation, which I think we were just under. But there is but for that to happen, it's got to have fire suppression. Typically, most of the buildings we do are what we call type 2B, which is metal studs, concrete, nothing will burn. And even then, a lot of them, if it's an assembly type occupancy, even then it's got to have fire suppression in it as well. So it's, again, just some pretty major code deficits there.
And I don't think there's any safety issues right now at the time on the exterior of the building, because I think that's already been taken care of. Isn't that correct, Justin? You did that about
All the marble and stuff come off the top is what you're referring to there.
Yeah. Anything that was in risk of hitting somebody or hurting somebody's been taken care of so far, so. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been over there.
The downtown merchants, what do they call them? They'll have to get everything run through the, Sherry, what was that the historical part, what?
Yeah, the Main Street stuff?
Main Street deal.
Yeah.
They won't know when it's going to be replaced and
Yeah,
what that's going to.
Is the plan in conjunction with the Main Street
Yes.
guidelines? It is, okay. I just wondered.
So we can't do exactly how we want to do it. I think Mr. Townsend might even done it cheaper than what he was doing it, but you've got to go by what they want done on it as well.
Yeah, that's one of the major deals is the Main Street specifications and whatnot that's got to be done. I talked to Rob the other day about it. He said it's really not us that's telling, that's saying that it's got to be what y'all have got projected there, but he said that's the main, the Main Street that has got a big say in that and their regulations and all that they have out there. So
So in order to meet their guidelines of what you're talking about with the city, what would have to be done just to get by to meet that?
That's what they proposed, those plans, that's what the architect.
All that had to.
The architect had to meet their specifications to get to that.
what did we have, Judge, set aside for this project?
Close to 900,000, is that not right? Isn't that 1.2 or 900,000?
Well, in
the budget.
the actual budget, it's 700, and I think it was 780 is what we budgeted in Department 410 with a projection of $1.5 million. So we booked a contingency because you normally don't know if that's going to be utilized in the year, how long the project's going to be. We were in the bidding phase, so we had the startup in there. So we kind of did 50-50 on that. That's why we booked such a large contingency, because it's an unknown over there. But I did speak to the architect that is on it. He wasn't able to be here today, and told him that we were going to do this workshop and how it related to the bids and the bids that we had in the process. So the county can change the scope of the project, and Mr. Chase did share with me that most people that are approaching what we have across the street normally start from within and move out. They usually address concerns from within a building before they do the outside. So he says it's normal for these questions to come up. I don't know that it would change the plan on the exterior in any way. It's whether or not you want to amend the bids to go further into the interior. When we met with him individually with each of the precincts, those questions were coming up with him, someone that's been in the building recently and looked at the building, and we asked questions, the commissioners did, and I did at the time of the inside. His opinion was, and he's an architect and he's a renovator and worked on, that it could be made to be a functioning building with a renovation, but that really was a top level comment without any structural review. He was sending the information we had to his structural engineer, but I didn't get anything back before today. But we just sent that out at the end of last week to see if there was any input that they had. So as for the scope of this project and the way that we did the bid, the scope can be modified. It's modifiable. It's just an amendment to the bid that would inform the people that bid on the job that we're expanding the scope to include something additional, if that's what the court so chose to do. That's how the bids work.
Mr. Stencil's here today. Do you mind come talking about some of it? You've got the expertise on, you know what the plans are to fix the front of it. Would there be any problem? They're going to be able to hear you on that microphone. I'm asking you a question that you're going to answer out loud, and I'm going to get in trouble if you don't answer in the microphone. With what we're planning, what the plans show there, Mr. Stancil, on the front of the building, would there be any problem with extending back if we do decide to remodel the inside? Would that cause any problem in your thinking?
No, the way the architect designed the front, essentially the front wall of the annex stays. So the new wall on the right-hand side is 4 or 5 feet, or 6 to 8 feet from the existing wall. So if you were to increase the scope to go work on the inside, I don't think it would affect the scope of what you bid out at all.
Well, what I'm asking, I guess, in more better terms, if we did go ahead with this project and then decided to move into the inside, it's not going to affect what we've done to the outside and your structure there. I don't want to throw bad money away and then say, well, you got to fix this on this side with what you're going to do to the front.
Well, I think if you had a full design of a redo of the inside, I think the outside stays the same. Okay. The outside is 70% has its own structural inside or this scope.
Right.
The left side is essentially just cleaning the brick and painting it. So any new facade is detached in a sense from the existing building. The roof just ties together.
Right. Okay. And another thing that we got to consider on that, and I know they did it, and this was before my time when y'all were here. They moved during the COVID. They moved to the Civic Center. Yeah. And we'd have to rent some place for them to have court while we do the inside of it. And then that's another thing. If we do fix the outside of it and sell it, then we could lease it or whatever. You're talking $20-30 million to go away and build a whole new facility. I'd say at least.
We're bidding a project right now for city of Sulphur Springs, annex to the city hall. Now it is probably one of the nicer municipal buildings that I've been in a while. Maybe ever, but it's going to be in the $600 a square foot range. And just based on simple buildings that we're building at schools right now, you're not going to build much for less than $350, $400 a square foot, ground up.
That's what our architect said.
I think that's what.
I was right.
Imagine that.
But there's just some other things that we've got to consider. And like he was talking about earlier, that over there, I don't know if he tears the whole thing down, that we can get it. Can we get it with the wheelchairs and all that? Absolutely. Can we get it big enough in that spot over there? I don't think so. Just by the courtroom's already too small over there. They don't have room for the witnesses to stay outside. It's a whole cluster over there every time you go over there. And you can go when court's going on and see what is going on. And they do have barely enough room to get in there, and then they do have the back exit. But like I said, it's fixing part of the problem. And I don't know what the future holds over there, or what we could do with that building. And
Well,
it's
that's
worth
been
more
my
that way or not.
concern is, putting $700,000 into the outside of it, and then us getting in there and saying, well, this is not going to be enough room for us. Well,
It's not going to be enough room, I promise. I can tell you that right now. I spoke with Judge Kopech and Judge Saucier. There's not enough room, nor parking over there. And that was, at that time, Judge Lee was talking about buying the building behind them and expanding that all the way. And they still don't think that there's adequate room. And when you go looking at that, you can go over to Cass County and some of these other counties where they put it all together so they can bring the prisoners over. And it's, like Mr. Stansel said, very, very expensive, and we'll have to look at that as well. But if we put some type of building there on the front, then we've started somewhere. And I know that's a lot of money, but this was in the budget before I ever come into office, and with the other plans. And I think these plans that y'all all agreed on are a whole lot better than what they had, where they was going to put the sitting bench and all that out front and so forth. But at the end of the day, you've got that to look at as well. So. Any questions for either one of them?
I don't really have anything else. That was one reason I wanted to think this over and look at it a little more rather than voting on it the other day. I wanted to look back at this. I knew that we had this. I wasn't for sure how long it had been. I knew it had been a while. And so I just,
It still gives us some time. We don't have to put it on the next agenda. We can put it on the following. The thing that concerns me is we have spent $100-something thousand on electricity over there already.
Yeah.
We have put air conditioners over there already. We have done some work on the roof over there already. So there's some of that's already been spent. And then we spent, I think it's 60, 70-something thousand on the architect. Then the asbestos check that we had done. So we've put money into it already, and it's in the budget. And so we need to.
Justin, let me ask you a question I just thought about. He was talking about doing work on the roof and all. What's your opinion on the roof? Does it need to come off and another roof be put on, or?
The repairs, that were the leaks that we've addressed have all been repairable, but it's one of those deals where we were, like, when we had the roof inspection, I think I paid to have a roof inspection because it had been poured. And either I'm speaking of what they found in that, and I was back when Lee was here, or what our roofers have told us, is that it's one of those where it's not like you got to have a roof right now, but it's not used up, but it's not new. And by putting the new roof on it, you were able to take care of some of the pitch issues that were involved in it. Now, granted, that doesn't tell you that the pitch issues are because something's failing underneath. I don't know if y'all saw anything of that, but sometimes those holding water, sometimes that's a result of a sagging truss or something on the inside.
That's what the insurance said. They came and when we had damage, we had the insurance appraisers come out, and they basically said it's not necessarily your roof, it's the way it rains. And it's got to constantly be monitored because you get one thing not raining and it backs all the way up.
And
So
some of the issues we took care of were from the test holes that were drilled that weren't patched back.
And Something to do with a drain back there, is that not right, Justin?
Not into the drain places, but we've never looked at any of that. It's not ever been asked of us, so I can't speak a whole lot on that.
We just kept having
When it holds water,
the ceiling
it's not getting
and
there.
stuff, so we had them come out and look, because I kept thinking it was roof damage. So we had them come out and look, and they said, no, it's not from your roof, it's from your drainage system, that they back up and then they puddle, and that's what the appraiser had said.
At least we addressed it on the front portion of the building.
Right, up by Judge Kopech's office.
This was
and stuff.
back over by the district clerk's office when we called on her.
That was before our time, or before my time, and you started working, or y'all started working on the roof for us.
Yeah. Yeah, we just had, that's the only input I've ever had on the roof was from them.
I just, if it's not adequate now, I just think we need to do something else besides put money in it, and, because it's not adequate, it's not big enough, so if you do renovate it, it's still not going to be big enough, so I just think we need to go another route.
We're not here to vote today, though.
No, I know, I'm just saying.
And we are going to have a lot of other expenditures coming up too, one with the election office too, so we want to keep that in mind too, so.
We got to go in there and fix that building, we can have even a bathroom access in that storage room.
100% we do.
And,
Something every day, something on every building.
Oh, I know. Yep. And they're going to tap that back room in the election office, they're going to do away with it, and you're going to be precinct 14 is going to be voting in there.
Not by our control.
Oh, that's right, you're right.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I don't think I've got anything else. That was, I just wanted some questions answered there. One reason that.
Appreciate both of y'all coming and speaking today, and
I'd like to say something.
no. Scott, you're supposed to hold her down back there.
Are these meetings recorded?
Yes.
Just in case anybody wants to go back and see who was the big mouth woman at Sherry Spurl. I'm a relatively new citizen here, just now getting involved in things. Actually, the first time a few years ago that I ever got involved as a citizen to start paying attention when I finally matured and grew up and realized that we need to all get involved if we will, was here at the courthouse. And it had a lot to do, not just particularly with the, I call it the old Garrity building, but the whole court system, the county courthouse, the whole thing. And there was some discussion then, and I'm sure most of you know this, that, and it's certainly worth looking at, to start over from scratch. I mean, all these buildings are old. They all need a lot of repair. They fail in a lot of standards. Mr. Calvert pointed out, things like this. And I respect that. On the other hand, they are paid for by and large, all these old buildings. The county's relatively low in debt, and I'm grateful for that. I didn't get my hair color put on this weekend. My gray is beginning to show. So when I come up now and speak, I honestly am saying to the public and to you guys, I think a lot of us are looking down the road for the next 10, 15, 20 years, the next generation coming into Titus County, in our area to live and live their lives and do their business. I don't like debt. I drove up here today in a 2001 Toyota Camry with 320,000 miles on it. I live in an old house, and my husband's family works in a very old building. I like old things. But they do finally don't meet standards anymore. They're not large enough. With all that said, I understand it's in the budget, and I appreciate the idea that you can do a facade and still come back and later and do something to the building. Parking has always been a concern. There was somebody gossiping years ago, I can't recall, about taking the parking lot over across the street and getting a bid. I know all this is expensive, but to even get a bid on a multi-level parking thing, because there's just no parking enough when there's a lot going on in the city, not just during business hours in court, but like festivities and things. There's just no parking, not enough, I don't think. I think it's dangerous sometimes, and I think it does impede. But if we want Mount Pleasant's downtown to stay alive for the next 20 years, if we want a viable downtown for the city of Mount Pleasant and Titus County, the municipal functions have to stay down here. If the courthouse were to ever vote, and I know y'all wouldn't without a bigger workshop, to move from downtown altogether and build a whole new complex, there would be no downtown Mount Pleasant anymore.
Wait just a second, so that you clearly understand, we would never build a new building, new facility, all of that without it going to the voters. It would not be.
I realize
it would
that,
not
but
be us.
to
It'd
even
be
to
a
plan
bond
it,
issue.
but to even to plan it would be a very scary and expensive process to even get bids to move and to move. So I think most of us are in agreement that the bulk, if not all of the county functions, city, all the municipal, the banks, as much of that as we can keep downtown, it's vital to the downtown. I have the concern as a citizen that to do the facade, I'd love to see it look better and fix some of the leaking front and the deterioration. I still think we haven't addressed the need for space in the, and when he mentioned the possibility that they said there's congestion and issues with people when they're here for court, like you even said, standing outside. I say the county has spent a lot of money in some immediate updates, and probably you had to meet ADA requirements and insurance requirements and other things. But do we continue to piecemeal this thing? I wish the county would consider getting an overall bid to see about a complete gut, a complete renovation. Before you continue to spend the money, I think it would be prudent to see what another bigger alternative could hold in store. Maybe go to that big parking lot over there and build a new building over where across the street, and then tear this down and use it for parking or something. There could be some maneuvers. At least look at it with bids to get some ideas. I don't know where else, where you just have to start buying other old buildings to tear them down to make parking, and it's expensive. But I don't think there's a bad decision here. I think that everybody's got good points, and I think that there needs to be some money. But at what point will you just pull the plug and say it's time to do something bigger? Are we planning, yeah, we're going to absorb this the next 2 or 3 years, but what's going to happen 5, 10, 15 years from now? Were we good stewards, and did we plan ahead? It's tough. I learned that when I was serving the city. It's tough because so much of the infrastructure for the city had been neglected. The sewer lines, the water lines, the whole thing. And I think they're considering a new, the dam at Tankersley, I heard, that's another problem. There's so many problems with this old stuff. And it's going to take us old people to do something about it and pass it on to the next group. Either way you guys vote, I'm going to support you on it, because I understand, and it's not the worst thing in the world to put the front, but I personally would like to see one more. This is what it would cost. There's been numbers thrown out, 400 a square foot, 600 a square foot, whatever, but could we get some kind of design? I know it would be a few more $1,000s and another delay, but $750 to $1.2 million is a lot of money, and we still have problems. That's a fact, and we still have future needs. And as Titus County grows, the jail needs to be, that's been talked about forever. I mean, there's so many projects that the county's facing. It might be time to go out for a big bond and just bite the bullet and put it on a 20-year bond and get this stuff in the works. I don't know if any of you politically want to handle that or not, but anyhow, I just think there's a lot of considerations to do. I thank you for your time. I really thank you for your service. What you guys do is tough. And I'm just going to say I don't think there's a wrong answer here, but I would like to have some more information about other options before y'all do this next patch, Band-Aid on that old building over there, because it's just totally outdated and really past its function. Thank you so much.
Sherry, let me just correct one thing. You said from 7, it's under 800,000. It's 700 and 91,
We haven't.
almost 90. We hadn't accepted any bid, but the low bid is that. So
What is a low bid?
the low bid is 791.
Okay, so I'm a round numbers girl, 800,000 up your contingency of 1.2. And
some of them would be
even if
over
you say it really
1.2.
fast, that's a lot of money. And if it'll get us down the road, say, 10 years without much more, but what if insurance ever does come in and say, you're no longer meeting insurance requirements, we're not going to insure the building? We have faced that at times too. So that's another long-term consideration. Is it going to even be insurable? And if they continue to enforce standards for ADA and compliance with the city codes, and then you're forced to do it, like I understand there's maybe something going to have to be done with the elections facilities. And like you said, it's not us, it's mandated. So other mandates can come to us that could affect this in the future. So that's why I think it's time to maybe, I would like to see at least a proposal to see what we would, and stop the argument a little bit. Say, this is what it would cost to get the size of room with all that we need. Safety to me is a big deal when there's a crowd gathered. And I know you've all noticed that shootings are on the rise. Violence is not getting better, it's getting worse in our country, and it's scary, especially when there's large crowds and upset people, which seems to happen a lot around courtrooms and city halls and courthouses, so, and schools. So anyhow, thank you again, and if you have any other questions, I'll make up an answer.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to say, I know y'all spent a lot of money on that building over there already, so, you know, it's kind of hard to feel like you just threw that money away. That building is a large building. Maybe, you know, I believe that there needs to be a study done on what the county's needs are, their space requirement needs. We've talked about it, but we don't really know exactly what that is and what the future to anticipate how much more space is going to be needed. And maybe have a study done on that building to see what can be salvageable, what we could use it for, and what we can't use it for, regardless of the facade. If the facade is independent, we still need to know what we can do with that building to make a decision on it. So I think a study needs to be done on that, as well as where there's other buildings that are needed. If that building's not going to be large enough, period, then what does the county need to do? Not right now, but eventually the county will be at a point where a decision will have to be made, and I think that study needs to be done ahead of time so we have proper planning. Thank
And the studying has been going on before I come into office with Judge Lee, and Judge Lee tried to buy that building behind it. So there has been, it's not just a whim deal, it has been kicked down the road and been some studies, and Judge Lee did that, and several times made a run at the building where the fair office and all that is, and couldn't get it bought. So.
Patty's office, the fair office.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, at that time, Patty wasn't ready to retire, but I think she's getting at the point that she is. But
that other lady owns that building.
I don't know that whole block there would be big enough for what we need to take care of parking and whatever, court and all of that, so.
And Ms. Brewer wants us to stay downtown. We don't have enough room to stay downtown right there, so.
I just want downtown to thrive and have all these people. There's been a lot of people spend a lot of money to revitalize a lot of these old buildings around the square and downtown the last few years. I'm grateful for the money and effort they've put into it. And not that we have to make a decision just for those 1 or 2, 3, 4 people, but there's been a lot of effort, a lot of money spent on downtown to renovate these old buildings and to help our downtown. And depending on what the county and the city, but right now we're talking about county, decides to do with their properties and the maintenance thereof and the use thereof and all those things, it's going to affect all the investments that's already happened downtown. I'd like to keep that momentum going and see downtown Mount Pleasant continue to have a heart. If we move the stuff away from here, and even the courtrooms, I'd hate to have to get them too far the action, from the, sheriff's department, this, everything needs to be cohesive, I get that. Walking across the street or a couple blocks to me is not a big deal, but now, half a mile or a total location is. I know we're limited here for space, for parking and building, and I don't know how many, hey guys, how many of those buildings that we call that complex are rented out right now? And if we're talking about abandoning all those and use that entire property, that whole block, it's still not enough. Is that what you're saying?
One of them is the juvenile, is the adult probation, and the other one is rented out.
So one's being used for county purposes and one's being rented. So, but also all that would be probably incorporated, or maybe juvenile could be moved. I don't know. I mean, you just have to look at a lot of
Juvenile's
scenarios.
upstairs. That's adult over there. Juvenile's upstairs here.
Well, whichever, but I mean, that office may need to be, some of that may need to be rearranged, possibly. I don't know what the solution is I don't know the needs. I know when I was at the city, there was 2 or 3 times it came up that in City Hall that the police department really need to be moved out because they're sitting in each other's laps. They don't have room for all their equipment. And so there was that discussion about, and they re-petitioned some of the offices over there to make smaller cubicles for the staff to be able to work in City Hall. So I think the city and the county is facing some growing pains because our whole area is growing, and I just think it's hard to work out these old non-functioning, not laid out proper buildings. I get it, but I like to take things a step at a time and not spend too much money because we never know what the future holds. As y'all know, our whole world is in a turmoil.
Anybody else? That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion made by Commissioner Parker to adjourn. Second by Commissioner Parchman. We'll adjourn at 2:44. Thank y'all.